you know a lot of Christians in the Holy Land. How many support the government of Israel? Do you know?
I don't know that they would be any that really would.
Tucker Carlson sat down with a Catholic nun to discuss the situation in Israel and Gaza and how this is impacting Christians.
And within Israel as well, you go to Nazareth, you'll see many Catholic-run hospitals, schools. And so it's a fabric, it's a part of the whole character.
But I'm just still confused by the idea that the Christian population is declining under Israeli rule.
Yeah.
You would think just the opposite.
What gives them what I observed from my time in Israel and going back every year is that they do not want any Palestinians there. So the majority of Christians in Israel and Palestine are Palestinian. So they have to leave too. What grieves me is that the Holocaust is a horrible, horrible thing that happened. People slaughtered fairly quickly. Sometimes the thought comes to me when I've driven between, there's a tunnel road that goes from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, and it's only for the settlers to go on down to the continued settlements that lead down further south in Israel to Hebron, or actually I shouldn't say Israel, into Palestine, other Palestinian territory. As you're going, that tunnel road has been carved out of land that belongs to people in Bethlehem and Bejala, which you're passing by on that tunnel road. So it's like a living death. How would you like to be a man? That was your grandfather's olive trees, but now it's controlled by Israel, and you're not even allowed to drive on that road.
I just don't understand why Tucker would think this. It seems to me like he's trying to conflate the political alliance between the U.S. and Israel into some sort of religious alliance. That just isn't the case. This sounds more like Christian nationalism. The U.S. is not a Christian nation. The country was influenced by Christian beliefs, but that's far from it being a Christian nation. I don't think anybody is going to negate that it had a Christian influence, but to say that it's necessarily a Christian nation because of that, it's a stretch. I think Mother Agapia makes a good point. If they don't want Palestinians in those areas, a majority of Christians are Palestinian, then that would explain the decline. You're pushing out Palestinians and those Palestinians happen to be Christians, then yes, that would make sense. I did some research just to see what the data showed as far as the percentages of Christians in Israel as opposed to Christians in Palestine. And this is what I found. At the end of 2022, Christians made up 1.9% of the Israeli population, numbering approximately 185,000. 75.8% of the Christians in Israel are Arab Christians. As of 2015, Palestinian Christians comprise between 1 and 2.5% of the population of the West Bank, and about 3,000.13% of the population of the Gaza Strip. Now, those numbers have definitely changed with the conflict, and both sides blame each other for the reason for the decline.
Situation as the Muslims being a Palestinian. So the problem is, there's two different things. If you live in Israel, you're a citizen, and so they can live there and work.
Cut that other stuff out. No.
But there's sort of some petty grievances that people might have. But if you're a Christian in Palestine, which is where most of the activities of the life of Christ are, Bethlehem, Jerusalem, the Mount of Olives, Jericho, Jacob's Well, that's all within Palestine. And so that's the predominance of the Christian population there. And they're treated with the effects of the occupation, which means you have checkpoints around you. A Christian who lives in Bethlehem cannot go to Jerusalem, to the Holy Sepulchre, without a permit by Israel. And they don't usually give those permits, especially now.
A Christian can't?
No, without permission from Israel.
That's interesting because, I mean, those Christians that you're describing, I mean, they're the descendants of the Christians.
Absolutely, yeah. They've been there from the beginning. Yeah.
This is interesting. And I personally did not know this. When you look at the way the map is drawn out and the way the regions are split, it does make sense. Tucker seems to be shocked to hear that Christians living in Bethlehem can't go to Jerusalem without a permit. And again, I'm just not sure why this shocks him. The way things are structured there, this is essentially two different countries. So it makes sense for there to be borders. That doesn't mean that I agree with their approach, but I do think that it shows that it's not just, oh, you're a Palestinian, so you can't go to Jerusalem. You get the sense that Mother Agapia is not the biggest fan of the Israeli government, and she did spend some time living there, and she seems to still have some connections. So I think it's at least worth listening to what she is saying. But I do wonder how much of her views is being influenced by political talking points. She does at least appear to embrace more of a leftist ideology in this whole Israel is occupying the land. One of the things that stood out to me whenever this conflict started getting more coverage was all the hoops and loops that people in Palestine have to go through to just get to work. I remember reading a story about a Palestinian man working in Jerusalem and how he had to go through multiple checkpoints to get to work. And on his way home, if the Israeli guard at the checkpoint wanted to give him a hard time, it could take hours for him to get home. This shouldn't be the case. Regardless of whatever side you're on, this shouldn't be happening, right? You shouldn't be treating people this kind of way for no reason. If they're not a threat, why make them go through all this? There has to be a better solution. It's ridiculous that a job that should only take a few minutes turns into multiple hours because you have to go around this large barrier. Now, I don't think that getting rid of the checkpoints is the solution either, since unfortunately you do have some people who don't have good intentions. But making people go through all that just to get to work or get home, it's unacceptable.
That it's sort of this cruel bargain they have going with Israel, because basically what they say that they're going to be swooped up into heaven, right? And then there's going to be 1,000-year kingdom, and then there'll be the end of the world and the judgment by Christ, and he'll come back. This is a false. It was condemned as a heresy in 381 because basically there is no 1,000-year millennium to come, no 1,000-year period. The end will. We are in that time period now, and so it's a false belief there. And
so basically what they're arguing is that Jesus coming the first time wasn't enough.
Yeah, and it's like in a way it's denying the Messiah.
It sounds like she is combining the idea of the rapture with the 1,000-year reign. Though the two often get brought up together, they don't have to go together. Historic premillennialists don't hold to this idea of the rapture, but do accept the 1,000-year reign, the millennium. Revelation 20, verse 6, blessed and holy is the one who shares in the first resurrection. Over such, the second death has no power, but they will be priests of God and of Christ, and they will reign with him for 1,000 years. She makes it seem like this whole view was made up. So I think it's worth seeing that it is in fact mentioned in Scripture. We can disagree about how we interpret it, but let's not act like it's not in the Bible. Mother Agapia says that this view was condemned in 381, but at least the doctrine in the way that she is describing it here doesn't come into play until the 1900s with John Darby.
While they have swimming pools in their settlements and green plush grass that Christian Zionists are paying for.
Have you, you know, a lot of Christians in the Holy Land. How many support the government of Israel? Do you know?
The Palestinians within Israel?
Yeah, Christians support the government of Israel.
I don't know that they would be any that really would. What's the especially now? I mean, they're literally throwing out Palestinian representatives.
So in the U.S., there's a sense that Christians support this program.
Of course not.
And then I Support Now, who said, we got to get our people out of there and help them. They're called refuseniks.
Right. Yep.
And my dad worked in this, actually. And I thought that was great.
Sure.
You don't see that with any Christian group with Christians in the Middle East. There's no Christian group in the United States that I'm aware of. It's like, hey, those are our people. Maybe we should help them.
No, they are. In fact, there was just a conference down in Atlanta. There's something called Churches for Middle East Peace. And there's a group like Telos Group. There's Christians for a Free Palestine, but they're very small and they're not so much part of the institute, the hierarchy of the church. But we had Pope Francis did speak out. And I think certainly the Catholic Church in America has to do a lot more as an institution. I mean, we should have a Christian APAC group. Of course, going on.
Like you're not allowed to shoot up the Church of the Nativity.
This shouldn't be surprising, but I do think it's telling. The Christian Broadcasting Network, CBN, claimed that Palestinian Christians suffer systematic discrimination and persecution at the hands of the predominantly Muslim population and Palestinian government aimed at driving their population out of the homeland. However, Palestinian Christians in Bethlehem and Bet Jala have claimed otherwise, that it is the loss of agricultural land and expropriation from the Israeli military, the persecution of 1948, and violence for the military occupation that has led to a flight and major exodus of Christians. The second part of this is from Haaretz, which is a Jewish news source. So at the very least, I think we should approach this with open minds. When the people that are, in a sense, pro-Israel are reporting this, we should at least listen to them. I like that Mother Agapia points out that there are groups actively trying to help Christians in the Middle East. That being said, they should be getting more publicity for the work that they are doing. This doesn't get as much coverage as some of the other groups that are supporting Israel. I think this needs to change. This kind of stuff should be at the forefront and should be promoted. It shouldn't be one of those things that you have to go and search for in order to find. Now, I don't know that a Christian AIPAC group is the solution, but it would have been nice to have someone advocating for the Christians that are being murdered in countries in Africa. That got like no coverage for months. It wasn't until YouTubers started talking about it more and more often that all of a sudden mainstream news sources started to actually address it.
We don't want to go too far and say anything negative about Israel. And that was back then. That's 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Yeah. So it's not being attacked necessarily, but it's not letting you be truthful about things.
Do you think Christians in other Arab countries are treated better than Christians in Israel and Palestine?
Well, I can only go from my times of being there. In Lebanon too, at the time I was there were churches, and they were part of the society. Yeah. So there was nothing wrong with being a Christian. And in Syria, when I was now who knows what's going to happen? But certainly the time when I was there.
Well, Israel controls those countries now.
This is alarming, and I don't think that we should just dismiss it. But I also think it's important that we consider other Arab countries where being a Christian basically means a death sentence. Why not bring up Afghanistan or Pakistan or Iran? In these countries, if you claim to be a Christian, you pay with your life. I don't think we should just cherry pick what she deems the best examples. And also notice that she says at the time when she was there, clearly that's not the case now. We've seen this reported before. So let's not try to, in a sense, romanticize what's happening in these other areas with Christians when we've seen repeatedly that this is not the case.
Porphyrius Church from the 3rd century was bombed. We also have in the Orthodox.
How did a Christian church get bombed?
Because it's part of Palestinians, and all there. I've been there before, and basically that it's the Holy Family Church and the Baptist Church. They're all pretty much in the same area, so you can't make a mistake. And Christians through.
Well, you don't think that was an accident?
No, nothing's an accident. I mean, occasionally a shell might go off, but no. And certainly the last time with the one where they pointed at the cross. You don't miss that. Well, the Holy Family Church, the cross didn't topple, but literally inches from it.
One thing is for sure, Mother Agapia is not holding back. She is adamant that this was not an accident. So much so that she points out how these tank shells were pointed at Christian crosses at those churches. The difficulty here is how much of this stuff can be verified. She says a lot of things that, if indeed are true, do not reflect good on Israel. The problem is you have both groups, Israel, Hamas, Gaza, the Palestinians, unfortunately, trying to spin the narrative. We can't get a clear answer. We can't get things presented just as the truth or the facts for what they are. I also want to point out Apostate Prophet on Twitter, probably on YouTube now. He has a video where he walked through some of the claims that Mother Agapia makes in this video, and he showed how a lot of these claims are just flat out false. So let's not just take for granted what she says. Let's not take her word on everything she is saying here. Let's listen. Let's pay attention. We shouldn't just ignore it, but let's make sure that we're trying to verify what she is claiming. We should be doing this on both sides. But let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you next time.